All right, we're hitting record now.
Okay, praise God.
All right, so good morning. Good morning. First and foremost, we appreciate all of you for joining us, for participating in today's segment in regards to a very important topic that our community experiences. So my name is Chelsea. These are my colleagues, Ayana and Aisha. I'm gonna go through and have you all introduce yourselves. If you can just tell me your name, where you're from, your occupation, and just a brief background or bio.
Sure. All right, so I guess I'll start. Hi, I'm Brittany. I am born and raised here in Connecticut. Currently, it's kind of, I won't say that part. I was gonna say, so yeah, I'm currently in like the New Haven, Danbury, Fairfield County area. And my occupation, I would say I am an educator, I am a doula, and I am not aspiring, but I am becoming a student midwife currently as well. And yeah, just a little bio about me. Kind of like I said, born and raised here in Connecticut. I have background in education. That's kind of like been like my thing. And in that process, I kind of always have known that I wanted to be a midwife and be in birth work. And that's kind of like how I found doula work. And then from there, I've kind of just been like working on like my craft, developing my skills, learning how to listen to women so that I could be a better midwife, which I am in the path of doing. And yes, yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah. All right, so hey, my name is Shamika Frazier. I'm the owner of New Birth Journey. I am born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut, but I service Connecticut, period. I am a birth and postpartum doula and a certified breastfeeding counselor. Lord help me. And apparently I have been becoming more of a speaker. I have been speaking at, I went to Mitchell College in London. I have spoken at Yale University. I have been featured in both of their school magazines. I have done some podcasting, actually in and out of state. So I've kind of been a little bit all over the place on top of being a doula. I have supported mainly birth so far. I had 17 births, 17 lactation feeding mamas. I also have 3 children of myself. I was once a teen mom, and now he's a teen. I made it this far, okay? Biggest reward right now. And they're all alive now. But I have 2 boys, 1 girl. I'm no longer necessarily a teen mama, but I am a single mama. As well as I do have other jobs outside of birth work, but I like to stay in my community, help support BIPOC families, especially Black mothers. Because it relates to my stories, it's easier to relate to a lot of theirs, as well as the disparities that they go through and they face or we face, in other words. So I just try to do my part to make a difference, leave an imprint, and ensure more safety and security and confidence for those giving birth.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Brianna, and I am a nutritionist. I've been a nutritionist since 2013. I'm also a IT engineer. You know what I'm saying? On the side. Okay. Yeah, support my kid. Yeah, so I kind of have a dual role. Well, maybe like more than a dual role, but I've been in this field for a very long time. I've always been passionate about just helping people eat well, move well. I've been texting Ayana all the time about like what to do and and how to get back on track. And a lot of people kind of come to me for that type of advice. Fitness is my thing. I also work at The Edge. I've been working there since 2017. Love what I do. I have a 2-year-old who is the light of my life and also a maniac. But I love it. Since being a mom, it's been transitioning more into helping moms be well, do well, all the things. My own experience was I had an amazing pregnancy. In the 8th month, I had preeclampsia. No idea where it came from. We don't know how she got here. But it showed up, and it was a first time for it, like even in my family. So we didn't really know like what to do, the different things that we could have probably done to maybe prevent it. But it was a great like learning experience, and I'm so grateful that one day I just noticed that my son wasn't moving like how he should, like how he does. And I said, I should probably go to the emergency room. And we went to the emergency room, and my blood pressure was like 200 over 160. And I think that if God had not led me to go that day, I probably would not be speaking to you right now. And so I'm really, really passionate about helping women in general and helping moms to live well and to be well. The mental health is so important because I think that it affects you, it affects your children, it affects your community, it affects how you show up in the world. So I'm here for what we're doing today, and I think that there definitely needs to be more of it for sure.
Hi everyone, my name is Sundas Kazmir. I'm a pediatrician. I work at the Fairhaven Community Health Center with Chelsea, who I'm obsessed with. I'm board certified in general pediatrics and child abuse pediatrics, so I work as part of the DART team at Yale. So I get consulted on cases when there has been suspected abuse or neglect, but part of why I've always wanted to maintain some of my practice in primary care, because my passion for doing that work is to prevent child maltreatment. Because I think the way I'm able to do that work and sometimes see those challenging cases is because I think such a small percentage of that is from parents who actually want to hurt their kids. I think more often there's social determinants of health that can impact, especially in cases of neglect. And I think the primary care and pediatric medical home presents an opportunity to really connect with families and provide those resources before we get to those outcomes. So that's my passion and why I do this work. I think also, just in terms of my background, I'm sorry, I'm not from Connecticut originally, I'm from Jersey, but I found my way to Connecticut. I did my pediatric residency at Yale and then just fell in love with New Haven. So after I did my fellowship, I came back because I wanted to work and be a part of this team and community. And then my background, I'm the first generation child of Pakistani immigrants, so though from a different background than I think everyone in this room, I very much relate to I love my identity and my heritage, but I know that there's a very big stigma against seeking like mental health and sort of addressing that the way that we would like physical ailments. And on like a very personal note, like I'm on my journey of motherhood. I am pregnant, so if I'm like nauseous, I have like Cheerio. I'm like living off of Cheerios. But my journey has had a lot of ups and downs with infertility and pregnancy loss. So it's been a long road, and that through kind of forcing myself to confront some of the mental health effects of that, especially the pregnancy losses, it's become, I think, a real passion. And even I had that own stigma myself. So I want to just empower women, because the advice I got from my own doctors is like, that's in order to be the mother that you want to be, you also have to take care of yourself. And I think that's so hard for women to do when we're sort of socialized to think about everybody else. So
Thank you all. It's so important to hear all of your backgrounds and the different walks of life that you all come from, because I think that just highlights the fact how all of these things sort of intersect. So though the conversation is going to specifically be around mental health and identifying postpartum anxiety and depression early on, holistic approaches to kind of prevent those things turning into neglect and child abuse, I do want to say to our viewers and our participants in the room, though I'm going to be asking questions off of the list, if you want any of the panelists to elaborate more, or if you have any questions that pop up in real time, please feel free to ask, because we want this experience to be in the moment. So we can continue to go on just the way that we did, and our first question is going to be, how does the postpartum experience for your clients or patients' parents intersect with the work that you do specifically?
Just gonna go down the line?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes, right. Number one.
You have to start with every question.
Every question. No, we might have to flip. Okay, so right.
Hit the
who's going
buzzer. Me first.
How postpartum? I think so. You said how does postpartum care kind of intersect with the work that I do? So as a birth and postpartum doula, it pretty much. Well, I mean, they're hand in hand. I work with clients through, as a full spectrum doula, I work with clients like through their entire pregnancy or parenting journey. So it can be from fertility when they're planning to get pregnant to supporting them during labor and birth, until postpartum where now they're home and they're kind of transitioning with that family. So it's kind of providing that care throughout that care and support throughout the entire, kind of the entire journey. And I think one thing that I really value a lot, in my doula work is having the opportunity to get to know my clients and get to know who they are, and yes, learn about their pregnancy, but like getting to know them on a personal level, because once you get to the postpartum stage, they're the main caretaker for their baby. They're literally making sure their baby is fed, can eat, changing diapers, the sleep deprivation, all those things. So knowing who they are, that's really valuable to me, because then I can remind them and instill that back into them if they ever do have like those doubts, those questions, or they're just occupied with other things. Grounding them back into who they are. I think that's one of that's one of the biggest intersections of my work and postpartum care. So yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna be that person to restate the question. I just want to make sure I open it thoroughly, answer it thoroughly.
Absolutely. And all of you, feel free, if you need the question to be repeated, feel free to ask. So the question is, how does the postpartum experience for your clients, your patients, or your patients' parents intersect with the work that you do?
Okay, all right. For some reason, I thought it was so much more to that. But no, it's okay. No. So I'm a birth and postpartum doula as well. I'm not as full spectrum, so when you start conceiving, I won't be there. No thanks, but power to you. But I will meet you at your birth stage when you're actually ready to go. I have worked with moms who've done in vitro and things of that nature. So I have gotten a chance to start kind of there when it's like, oh shoot, like finally I'm here, blah, 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 and a couple months in. And then I do a postpartum check usually after they have given birth, etc. But even in that stage, I share resources with them for if they need postpartum or perinatal therapists, etc. They need to connect with. Thankfully, during my career thus far of being a doula, I have been able to connect with so many other amazing women of all different shades who just so happen to have all these amazing careers in different fields where I can connect them directly to my clients to support them as well, because to be honest, it takes a village, right? Even though I said a whole lot. With what I'm saying though, how it intersects, it's hard to have one without the other. You have to kind of acknowledge both to keep that that family balance, because yes, primarily the woman and the birth body is going through the postpartum, but you're also experiencing those moods on the outside, the surrounding family, the surrounding friends, down to maybe if they have pre-existing children, is experiencing that as she goes on that roller coaster ride. You're kind of in the seats with her anyway. And so if she cannot articulate herself in a way that she could say, hey, you know what, I need this because today's a hard day for me, or I need more lactation support in the sense of I need you to take this baby, bottle feed this baby so I can go to sleep, which is all a part of that postpartum sector. So my education don't just stop with, or my counseling and support don't just stop with working with her. It's for everyone included in that situation. I asked them, like, how well does your mama know? Like, when they're like, oh yeah, my mom, my auntie, my cousin, everybody in the family is flying down to come and support me over X amount of weeks. It's like, what do they know though? If you start getting hot and sweaty, who's gonna report that if you can't speak? Who do you have that's gonna be able to be like, oh snap, let me go grab the baby, this and this and that, or did you take your medicine today, etc., etc. So it intersects very deeply, because also how you take care of your body after also rolls into if you do want another child, or even when your periods, your regular periods just start back up because you went through such a hormonal shift, especially if it's your first time, because your body has completely been hit with something different. So initially you're just like, yeah, I'm just a girl, and then now you're a mommy, and it's like your body's like, you signed up for this, we didn't. Like, who put us into this? So after that shift has happened, it's like, what do you do after? And that's where being a postpartum doula takes effect, and again connecting you to those resources and those things. So hopefully that answered it all the way.
Yes, thank you.
For me, I come in with the nutrition and fitness, so I'm typically, once they get cleared, so once they're cleared, most insurances will cover it, and I'm working with the Department of Health, and I think, you probably know, they're just very slow. So I'm trying to get insurances to cover my clients so that they don't have to pay out of pocket, or they can be reimbursed, because I think that it's very important that everybody has an opportunity to have access to these resources, because everybody doesn't have the ability to afford a lot of these resources that they probably should just get rolled into their insurance policy. So I love being able to come in afterwards and, like she said, just sit with them and sit with the people that are around them and the support system that they have, and say, what are you looking for? As a nutritionist, it's less like a dietitian, because I'm not here to tell you, like, I can't prescribe anything, but I can look at the whole picture. I can tell you what this food will do, what eating this thing is probably gonna help you with, why you shouldn't probably eat this before you go to bed at night, because you need to go to sleep. If somebody is saying that they feel gassy, or if they're having discomfort of something, I can redirect them to say, okay, maybe you need to go see your doctor for this, or maybe you need to go back to your OBGYN, or looking for different things. And then when they're cleared and they want to get back to just feeling strong, feeling better, especially if you've had a C-section, there are certain exercises that will be really helpful for that muscle, that 6-layer muscle that was cut through. I personally had a C-section, and so it was very important for me to just not focus on trying to snap back, because that's not the goal, because we're not gonna snap back. That's not a thing. But we can be our best self. We can feel like our best self. I think the goal is to just feel better. The aesthetics will come. All of that will come, because the results will show. But that's where I come in. I just really enjoy helping them with their nutrition. I go shopping, I cook, I do all the things, make plans for them, just try to make their life a little easier.
So, as a pediatrician, I think the way that we deal with the postpartum experience, for anyone who in the room who has had kids, you may remember that you actually see your pediatrician, your baby's doctor, quite a few times before you even see your own doctor. Traditionally, like the OBGYN visit for new moms is around 6 weeks, but in that time, your baby will be seen at least twice, if not more. Like if they're, we're following their growth closely, or there's jaundice or other issues, we sometimes see babies and, we'll see them for a 1-month visit. We might see them like 3 or 4 times before you've seen your own doctor. And as I mentioned kind of in my introduction, I think on the one hand it's tough, because as a pediatrician, my patient is the baby, not the mom, but the way that we think about it is like the baby's health is directly really related to the mom's health. And at those visits, there are screening tools that we do, starting at the 2-week visit in our practice, specifically asking about maternal mental health, postpartum depression, and anxiety. And even for us being the baby's doctor and not the mom's doctor, a lot of offices, we're still able to provide those resources and that mental health support if we identify that there's any symptoms or there's struggling going on. We always ask about kind of who lives at the home. Is anybody come to see the baby? Who is your support system? Because I would say from the lens of my other job as a child abuse pediatrician, I think the number one thing I always worry about with any parent, but especially new parents, is people who are very isolated and have limited supports. Because as everyone's mentioned, that experience of having a newborn, and your body completely changes. It's that new responsibility, and if you don't have those supports, it can just be a setup for frustration, sleep deprivation, for someone to maybe go too far and hurt a baby that they didn't mean to. So we try to assess all of that. I think sometimes parents might feel like, oh, my pediatrician's a little bit nosy, but I promise, the reason is because our patient is the baby, but we also think of taking care of the whole family.
Thank you. You guys touched on some amazing points. I just want to piggyback quickly off of something that you said, Brianna, about snapping back and that kind of being a triggering factor for a lot of moms, because I think that is so real. And I think that is one of those things that can be seen or perceived to be shallow. So there's not necessarily a lot of honesty about it, but a lot of moms have stress and anxiety and depression because of the way that their body looks after carrying and going through childbirth. So I want to ask a question, kind of segue for just a second, about how you all, in your roles, just in general, kind of get moms and families to kind of be honest about the struggles that they're having, because we do know that there's mistrust with in BIPOC families, not only moms, but families in the medical community, because of years and years of things happening that absolutely should not have happened, and there's still a lot of that happening today. So my question is, how do you kind of get moms, support people to be honest about the struggles that they're having postpartum?
You want me to go first?
You
want to hit your buzzer.
Okay, so I would say one of the ways that I create that, well, really it's creating a space for my moms or the women that I interact with to feel like they can be honest and be truthful. And I think one of my values is transparency. I feel like when I'm honest about, what I am either asking or the information that I need to know or why I need to know it, or it's simply just sharing something about myself, I think that breaks that wall or that barrier where it's not just a doula client or a provider and a patient type of situation where I'm getting this information so I can take care, but I'm getting to know who you are, and we're actually breaking those barriers and we're having those conversations and just being real with each other. I think I'm standing on that. And yeah, just creating that space. I also didn't mention, but I'm the founder of a nonprofit, Go to Radiance Village. And one thing that we really started off was creating support groups so that we could get moms together so that they could share their truth and they could find a space to share their truths and connect and talk about those hard things or those taboo things or what snapping back has looked like or what that has done to them, and just creating a space where we talk about it, and now here are the tools and here are things that we can grow and move past this as together, as a village, as a community. So yeah, that's one thing I would say.
Thank you. Let's see, how do I get moms, specifically Black moms? I don't, as for me and my experience, I don't know if it's just my energy that I carry. All my life, ever since I was a kid, people would just talk to me. Like, I really, and it always was funny to me because I have like the rest in me face. And it's not intentional. Like, I literally, my birth picture, I looked evil. Like I was like, who cut the lights on? Like, so, and I always laugh at it because my mom be like, you just, me and my baby sister, we're the ones who's like in our baby picture, so right. But even with that, people just woke up and talked to me. Like, I sat down and when I was on the city bus and waiting for a bus, like homeless people would literally come up and just be like, hey, you know why I'm homeless? And I'm like, oh.
Sorry.
No, I did not know why you were homeless. And they'll just talk.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's just a special gift that I have, that when I get to be around my clients, they will talk. And one thing I do is absorb their space. And because what you have on the inside sometimes reflect on your outside. So like a messy home could indicate there is stress somewhere in the home. Or if it's super neat and tidy, you may have like an OCD type client who's really like, so you're like, yeah, let me make sure I check, you know. But it's not to judge, it's just to observe and be like, okay, what's really up? Because sometimes the things they're not saying, their space is. Sometimes the things they're not saying, their energy is. Because birth and postpartum, the whole process is kind of energetic and spiritual to a degree, right? And then, so you kind of feel, you see, you notice. And within those things, I will always ask, like, how are you? Oh, girl, I'm fine. I'm like, no, how are you for real? I even ask, like, usually dad's there, now, how are you? Because you deserve some acknowledgement too. We didn't kind of get here without you. So how are you? And then they'll be like, I'm fine. And then I always, you know, of course, ask them, like, what are they looking for? What do they need? And sometimes even just simply asking those questions and you're hearing what their needs are. Well, I didn't feel safe, you know, X, Y, Z. I went and had to get fibroids removed. I don't feel safe, they violated me. And from there, I'm like, oh, okay, I know the temperature in the room. I know what's happening now. So I just like to sit back and listen and let them unravel. And then as they need support, even if they come into tears, I'm like, yo, I'm here, you're good. You're good. What I don't know, I'm gonna work real hard to try to get you connected to, like, basically, how can I love you? Yeah. So one of the things that I did a long time ago when I came out as a doula, originally, I was coming to a point in my life where I was learning about the 5 love languages, and I ended up creating a sheet based off of how can a doula utilize the 5 love languages to support a client. I would have to dig into my file to find a template, but it made me think about things like physical touch. So one of the things that I asked my client is, are you a hugging type of person? Do you like to be touched? If they be like, oh girl, no, and I'm like, okay. So that also makes sense of if a doctor came in a room and just did things without consent, why you also feel violated because you're a person who don't like to be touched anyway. So it's just listening for those little cues or quality time. There has been spaces where I supported clients where I was just like, well, how can I help you? They was just like, girl, just sit down. And I'm like, I mean, you want me to fold a blanket, something? Like, you want some water? And they're like, no, I need you to just exist. Because I know if I could look in the corner of my eye and see you there, I know I'm good. I'm like, we're good. I already trust you. So I know if you are the other eyes in the room, I'm good. Or another thing is just doing things. There's some times where they're just like, I ain't get to these dishes, and I'll be like, how can I help? Or is there someone I can send to help? Because you have house cleaners and I have a couple friends that do that line of work. Like, how can I get you supported where that's not a thing for you? I've met moms who didn't even have a place to live, so we met at the park. Hey, let's take a walk on the track that's focusing on your health. And along that walk, she will express, hey, this is going on, da da da. Bring her some waters, make sure she's hydrated. Hey, we can do squats, and I don't. Your situation is your situation. I'm here to support and be a friend as you go through. So that's pretty much. Hopefully, I answered that right.
So for me, I will say, when you're dealing with nutrition and fitness, those are very much areas where a lot of people can feel insecure. Like you mentioned, this is a very conscious snapback community. I will say generation, maybe, where we feel like we have to look a certain way. I just had a baby and I want to feel good, and so I want the accolades of, oh girl, your stomach is flat, like, oh girl, yes, that butt, like, okay, thanks sis. But the reality is, like, mentally, how are you? Where are you? And like you said, just feeling supported and being there and being that friend. A lot of why I've expanded and just not just being able to tell people about like what to eat or help them to find different foods that they can eat along their journey. I've added cooking, shopping, meal prepping, because these are things that I feel like moms need and they don't have the energy to do sometimes. I know I personally did not have the energy when I first got home. Had I not had my mom, I was like very nauseous because I was on like 4 different preeclampsia, high blood pressure medications, and so I barely could eat anything that could keep food down. And all she was feeding me was rice and eggs. And I thank God for that, because like if I didn't have the energy to, my baby was like 4 pounds when I brought him home. So I didn't have the energy to take care of him, take care of me, cook, do all the things. So adding that service is like such a beautiful experience for moms. And I think that, like she said, spending time with them, eventually people just start to open up. You start to see where you're needed. You start to see, okay, she didn't really say much about this, but I'm looking at the way that she's acting and when we're talking about it. Maybe she doesn't feel like she's ready to exercise. So then it's like, okay, well, let's get you and the baby out for a walk. Let's go outside. Did you go outside today, girl? Okay, no, all right, well, before I leave, let's just go sit on the porch. You know, something like that, where it just kind of makes them feel like they're doing something. Because I think that progression is not like, oh, I did 50% today. Your best is just gonna look different every day. And it doesn't mean that it's not your best. Today's best just might be, I combed my hair, I got the baby dressed,
That was
all
it.
right, everybody was fed, and that's a good day. That's a good day. It doesn't mean that because maybe you have more energy, and like as women, we have hormones, and so these things fluctuate. Even when you're not pregnant, your estrogen either drops, but right before
Teal phase.
all that affects your mood sometimes. All right, we get a little, and sometimes I can be honest, I didn't really pay attention to that until I became an adult. So I really didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, but all of it was like affecting how I showed up in the world. So I typically get my clients and just postpartum moms to open up and feel comfortable and be honest by just being real with them, sharing my experiences, and eventually that bond, that relationship will give me an in to kind of go in and be able to help them or redirect them to people that can, you know.
I think kind of building off what everyone else said and echoing the themes from the perspective of like the medical home, I think there's a lot of work that we have to do because, as Chelsea alluded to, there's really valid historical reasons why anyone who walks into our office, especially, you know, Yale has a very complicated legacy in New Haven, should come from a place of distrust. And so for me as a provider and you know, as someone who also is now in a position where I'm training pediatric residents, I'm teaching medical students in the next generation, it's coming at it from a place of like, we need to be very proactive about building that rapport and trust. I think some of it, like a recent example actually is there can be just very like simple things that we do. I went to see a patient in the ED, and at the end, the mom thanked me. She's like, oh, thank you so much for like sitting down and talking to me. Like, you're out of like 5 teams of doctors that had come, she said, you're the only one who actually just sat down. Like, everyone else was just like looming over me and my baby and the stretcher. And just those, I think even simple things like not just asking the questions that we all rely on the electronic record, but asking like a personal question, like actually getting to know someone, and to show that I think people need to know that you care, because so many, like, we come into this profession because we do care, and then I think, you know, that can get kind of lost with like how busy you are, but that's no excuse, especially in that postpartum period when we know that's such a vulnerable time for mothers and for infants. So I think, you know, another thing, I think Shamika mentioned this, is just like, as I mentioned, I'm pretty nosy, so I'm like, but I'm teaching like other doctors, like, be nosy too, be direct, be transparent, like address the elephant in the room. If you're just doing questions off your checklist, but the woman that you're talking to is very flat, giving one-word answers, like, ask about that, like, you know, just say, hey, what's going on? Like, don't just kind of keep going through your checklist, because then that's how sometimes cases can be missed, because it's like on the surface everything might seem to be fine, but you had that opportunity with a human being in front of you, and so you need to make that connection. So again, just I think showing interest in people, and I find that, you know, the residents who are the most successful are the ones who approach it from just being a human being first, and then being the doctor.
Can I like add to that? I think sometimes living in such a, I call it a microwave world, because everything is so fast that we just miss so many important pieces. So living in this current microwave world, I feel like we be forgetting each other's human experience, and we don't make space for it. We skip right over it, and we have an expectation of people that is majority versus reality. So because Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter done said you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to have this life, or yada yada yada, you're supposed to have a yacht after having a baby, and a flat stomach, and $1 billion, and 800. You're supposed to do all these crazy things, right? And so you see it, and then your brain is eating it, and then you have your neighbor here, you know, who's like, girl, that's not me though. So, and then in a medical lane too, you have, they may not have a constant feed, but their feed is also statistics. So it's just like, you're black, you're Muslim, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're that, you're that, you're that. So due to these statistics and the fact that I did X amount of years in school, you're this, but I don't know you. So we skip right over that human experience, where it becomes by the book or by what we see, and that's it. That's the dinner plate we eating. We are eating the TV dinners that we say is no good, but we're becoming the TV dinner. We're becoming the microwave society. So we skip that. You need to actually plant the seed, grow the food, nurture the ground, give it light, give it water. So when you're dealing with human to human interaction, especially, you gotta think we also are coming out of COVID. So we was all in the house, and we had to realize, oh dang, I can't just, well, I'm home, I got all this time on my hands, I don't need to pop this TV dinner in the microwave. That TV dinner, it'll be just you. I don't have to go to work, my job is paying me to stay home, okay, great, but then what do I do with this time? Then we started seeing a lot of people unravel, and some households became very dangerous. And with that, it's just like, oh snap, I'm actually a human. Oh, I'm not a robot, I'm not on this hamster wheel. And then it's kind of almost like, I want people to see me, or I don't want people to see me, because oh snap, I just discovered I'm human. And so having family, friends, whoever, acknowledge you're human, I'm human. Doctors, whoever you deal with, I'm human, we're human. Even your doctor is human, your therapist is human. We forget that, and we just start disposing of everybody's human experience and put them at this expectation. You're a therapist, you can't go out on a Tuesday and have a martini. You're a doctor, I shouldn't see you going to a cigar fest, like how dare you. No, it's, you're a human. You had a baby, you're a human. The father is still affected, but especially black men, they get skipped over. They get forgotten, lost in the sauce, because they already have stacks of statistics against them, where even in the room, a doctor will cut right in front of them and walk right past. No. Back it up, he's a human. He's a human. Even where the oh, guys never know what they're talking about. We're not gonna ask them no questions. Da, da, da. But then you have a guy who's just like, no, how can I support my partner, my wife, my mother, my sister, they're having a baby, they're going through these changes. I don't understand this language. Teach me. You forget he's human. He don't. So there's an education piece. So I feel like, I'm sorry, but I'm pulling it a little. But I just noticed just heavily in all of these fields, if you integrate them a lot, it's not us directly, but on a standard level, it gets skipped over that human experience and acknowledging it and making space for it. It's like, well, you know what, you ain't lotioning your baby, you ain't doing this, you ain't doing this, you ain't doing, call CPS immediately, instead of going, no, something's not right in that house. And sure, I may not get paid to make that phone call. I may not get paid to say, hey, would you feel comfortable off the books that I just check in on you? I go and bring you a free box of diapers without judgment. You ain't even gotta open the door up and leave it on your porch. That is real outreach. That's really being in a community. There's so many businesses and yada, yada, yada who are major brands who go, we're in a community, but you don't see them. So being actually proactive and in the community and doing that outreach looks completely different. Like, it's not necessarily by the book. Sometimes it's out the book. So making that interpersonal connection and saying it is okay to have a bad day. Like, it's truly okay to feel like you're so angry that you just want to do something. It's okay to have those feelings. Now, what do you do with those feelings? Is where we start either being preventative or actually being an additive to it, and we're inciting it. So what position do you want to take in this space? It comes down to that question. So,
before I go, does anybody in the room want to say anything?
Questions or thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, you still have questions you're going through? No? Okay. I'd love to hear, each of you just talk about advice that you have for a woman who's not yet a mother, but the steps that she can take to prepare, if she's anticipating having children.
Brittany ran away. Brittany, I'm thirsty, okay? And I didn't want to start again. I just finished out.
Well, I love that question, and I think you can go at it from a few different angles, but again, I'm really just thinking about that theme of isolation and just, from my experience from the really heartbreaking cases I've seen are when women don't have those supports. And I think also about a project that Chelsea and I were involved in that was not related to maternal mental health specifically, but we showed a video in primary care about shaken baby syndrome and prevention, because oftentimes that happens when somebody becomes frustrated because a baby's crying too much. They don't mean to, but then they just get frustrated and they lose it. And then we did interviews with the parents afterwards about, what was your experience like watching this video, and also what's been your experience of being a parent? Where are you learning how to be a parent? And we serve a very diverse community at Fairhaven, so we also had people from all over New Haven, people who spoke different languages, and that kind of constant theme, especially for a lot of women whose country of origin was different. They talked about in the Middle East, in Africa, in South America, when they're raising a baby, they're doing it side by side with their mom, with their sister, and that when now they're in the US and they don't have that support system, how challenging that is. So I think really understanding kind of the relationships in your life, who are the people that you can count on, and not being afraid to ask. I have a friend who's going through a very challenging postpartum experience right now. Her baby is just over a month old, and so I asked her, what would be most helpful to you? And she said, if you could just come one morning and just hold him for a few hours. And I think that was really took a lot for her to ask, because she's a very independent person, but she doesn't have her family here. but it's like, but we had built that friendship like in the months leading up to it that created that avenue. So I think knowing your support system and who you can count on, because I think it really does like take a village to raise a child. I don't know if that really answers your question, but.
I agree. I think you can come at it from different standpoints because before being a mom, I think the education piece is just gonna be vital because there's gonna be a lot of like on the job learning that the books just don't teach you. And I also think that there's a general like standard of I won't say standard, but there's like a base of like what to know, I guess, that you can learn about what it is to be a mom. But in those instances where you're just know like you're going into being a mom, like your experience is gonna be your experience. It won't work for your baby, just may not work for mine, and what's gonna work for your baby may not work for mine. So take everybody's advice, but also just kind of like conglomerate into like a pile and just say, okay, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna try it, and whatever doesn't work, I kind of will like toss it. I do think that the piece of having support is really gonna be vital. And even if that support doesn't look like family, because I know, like you said, your friend is not from, or even you weren't from here too. So like people may be in places where they don't have that family support just because their family's not in town or their family can't like fly in, like you said, or something like that. So having like a doula, having a good team like around you that's even just like in the medical field that's gonna support your pregnancy and your journey. I think that definitely helped me. There's also a lot of single moms out here that are doing it and they don't have supportive partners. So just learning, I think also just who you have a baby with too is just as important as what you're going to be doing and learning throughout that. So I definitely think the support piece, I think learning everything that you can, but then also knowing that your experience is gonna be different.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of my experience a little bit because I started as a teenager with motherhood. Definitely, I'll take it way back. A lot of it is, I would say get a journal, right? And I'm gonna say get a journal because over motherhood and over my challenges, over working with others, there's a huge mental portion to it all, right? Get a journal and assess the woman that you are today. Assess the woman that you want to be later. Because a lot of this, choosing to have a child, create a family is such a huge shift. You're shifting all of that. So when you create kind of like your idea, because life gonna throw whatever it throws at you. Life has changes and challenges and ups, downs, roller coasters that, but it's when you put on your GPS, it ain't gonna necessarily tell you like, hey, tomorrow your bank is gonna rob you. Like it's not gonna say that. So you don't know. But sit with yourself. Nobody is gonna love you, know you better than your relationship with you. Start there, right? Because it's easy to be like, I want to have a baby. Yeah, I just want to do that. But everyone's reason for having a baby is different. Some people are having babies to fill empty spaces, and sometimes that is detrimental more than it is actually helpful. You holding that baby tight and not getting no sleep at night because you're really depressed and you feel alone, but you're not addressing that elephant. You holding that baby. And sometimes even because I have a lot of therapist friends too, sometimes that baby grows up to be an adult that kind of low-key resents you. Like, Mom, you ain't let me go outside. You ain't let me, I would have to be in by 5 o'clock. Like, I'm 22. Like, because you was holding them so tight. So I would say assess yourself and where you are financially, mentally, emotionally. Those are the mental, emotional, and the financial is huge parts, and then spiritually and all of that, because a lot of that you finna sacrifice. And that's not the part that I think we highlight a lot, because it's gonna shift. And how it shifts could be whatsoever due to your circumstances. A lot of becoming a mom, a parent, whatever, comes with a lot of intentional prep, but they don't necessarily tell us what is the prep. A lot of the prep is inside. On top of, then you add in the layers of, am I feeding my body right? Am I moving my body? Because now you want to make sure you are eating a little better, you are moving around, you are doing that. And then when you have different cultures, which is a whole nother factor, is some of what you have learned in your culture may go against where you want to be. Some of it may add to where you want to be. So it's a lot of assessment that has to happen before making that leap. And I've always been known to be a deeper thinker kind of person. So all my friends be like, that's a lie. It's not that deep. And I'd be like, yeah, but when you're going from 0 months old to 18 years plus, because you don't stop being a parent because that baby's 18. You are there to your last breath. And even at that, I'm pretty sure in the spirit realm, you like, that's my baby. So with that being said, you are there. So you gotta understand, are you willing to sacrifice some of that time? If you are, oh, I'm about to be a lawyer, doctor, this and this and this, and I want to be that in 5 years, how much time does that take? And if you're spending time doing that, how much time you're not going to be around that child? And then do you have the support system to align with supporting that child in the way you want that child to go? Because you may be the seed for the tree, but then the branches go like this. So it's more than just a baseline assessment of, yeah, get up, girl, eat avocados, go run around, and just go ahead, just buzz it over and have a baby. That's not, it's a whole life-changing decision. So you gotta look at your life and say, how much of my life, and I'm kind of cool with changing regardless of the scenario, because certain things are going to happen along the way that you have no control over. So, no, motherhood is not something you just run into, but it's a lot to look within and, like I said, get that journal, write down all those thoughts, those points, and really look at it like it's now the time to start preparing and positioning myself for it. Sorry, go ahead.
What about when you do prep? And you know what you're doing?
When you
do exactly what you say, and that tree still go the other way.
For you or the child?
Your child.
So, at a certain point, as a parent myself, you wasn't here earlier, but I have a teenager, and I had him as a teenager. To a certain degree, I'm a daddy's girl, and I bring him in because my dad taught me something that stuck with me, and when I was a kid, I didn't like it. I was like, that man don't love me, he crazy. One of the things, I remember the first time I fell really hard, knee ashy, scraped up, bleeding, all that, snot nose crying, all of that, and he stood right there as I fell. So most people would be like, why didn't he run to your rescue, right? One of the things he told me is, you're going to have to fall. And what happens is, I cannot pick you up every time. I could stand there though. I could be there as a bumper, but you have to learn how to eventually gain the strength to get up on your own. So at a certain degree, I would say, don't stop loving your child and being that parent, but I will say sometimes it's okay to just step back just a little. In Montessori style learning, my kids go to a Montessori style school, but I look at a lot of Montessori style families, especially this is becoming more prevalent in our Black culture, as Montessori style teaching. They teach kids something as simple as spilled milk, literally, where a child be 2 years old and trying to pour milk into his cup. Cup tends to fall over because they usually pour too much, right? So initially, in most cases, we'll be like, oh no, get the paper towel for them and clean it all up. How is that child supposed to learn they made a mistake if you ran to their rescue? So if you just sat back, and there's actual footage that I saw of a mom, she was just sitting there, and I could see but the baby said, uh-oh, I spilled something. went and got the paper towel themselves, cleaned it up themselves, and ended up rinsing their own cup out and poured the right amount the second time they did it. So it's being able to sometimes trust how you originally planted that seed in the first place, because you're only going to go but so far, because your child is still connected to that umbilical cord. Even though we can't see it, they are still connected to that cord. My son is 16, and I'll share my little story. My son is 16, and he came to me trying to fill out his first set of tax papers for his very first job. And when he was flustered, he said, "I don't understand this." Mind you, the papers they gave him is like name, address. Have you made this in the last year? This is his first job, mind you. So I'm looking at it like, what are you flustered about? And this is a lot of words. Help me, please. And I'm like, breathe, okay? Trust yourself to be able to write your name. Okay, let's start there. And then we're gonna go down the paper. And then we're gonna also mark it where you don't understand. And if I don't understand, we'll look it up together. I'm here to support you, but you're becoming a man. So this is not gonna be your last job you have. So this is just the tester paper. So we're gonna trial run this. So I put little circles everywhere that I felt like he could fill out by himself. And I gave it back to him. I said, now you do it. And he went, he filled it out. He come back and he like, I said, yeah, remember you was all hot and ready like a Caesar's pizza when you first saw me? You was sitting there like, oh God, I can't. All you had to do was breathe. Your mind told you it was necessarily bigger than the program, but it really wasn't. It was more simplistic, and sometimes we do that. That is sometimes our human reaction to things that are unfamiliar, or sometimes we are overconfident, and we're like, from my room, like, and we'll try it, but sometimes you need to hit your head a little more to find out, all right, maybe I do need a little support here, even on a birthing level, even on a postpartum. Listen, I can tell you personally, when he was coming into this world, how I started closing my legs on his head, because I was like, you tell me what? My doctor, who I actually seen last year, she was like, I would never ever forget your story, because she was so tiny, and she leaped up on the table. She said, you better not close, and she has the softest voice. She was like, you better not close your legs on me right now, and his head is right there. And I was like, I can't do it. And she was like, you better push. And I was like, okay. I got so scared of her. I was like, here, take this baby. And I end up pushing. But it all is the same type of lesson there of being able to build them up to trust themselves to know. So yeah, you have the base of the tree, but there's a reason why them branches go everywhere. It needs that space to go everywhere. Just because it's going other places doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong either. So sorry, I kind of took a second here. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I just want to touch on what you all highlighted multiple times during your answering of these questions. And the theme is that how you all do amazing work in your roles to make sure that moms, dads, families feel seen and heard. And I think that, I know that in a lot of the spaces, that's where the disconnect starts. Families, moms, dads are not seen and they're not heard, and they kind of acclimate to that, and it's normalized, and they get to a point where I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be heard, so I'm not going to speak up, I'm not going to be honest, I'm not going to ask for help when I know I need it, because when I am seen or heard, the response is typically negative. Something bad ends up happening. I can actually speak to my own story personally during my C-section, and I've had 3 C-sections, and in each one, in the room you go in and they tell you, all right, get on the table, lay down, do this. There's no conversation, there's just direction, and I know and appreciate and understand that in the room, they're the expertise. Like they're the experts. They know what they're doing. But still, in that moment, I don't want to be excluded from the space, and that's exactly what happens. I don't have a voice in the room. I'm not even seen. You just direct me, and there it goes. And that happens for a lot of families, and during C-section surgeries, during vaginal deliveries, during postpartum or prenatal visits in the pediatrician office, and there's not a lot of spaces where families are able to speak or be seen. So I just wanted to highlight that and just tell y'all how much I appreciate that. That's a theme here that we are all in agreement and in alignment with that. So my next question is, in what ways can partners, families, and communities be better educated and equipped to recognize and respond to postpartum mental health needs?
Honestly, I'll say the simplest way is just educate yourself. It's to educate yourself. There's a lot of things where, educate yourself. Get the information. I don't think there's any other way that I could say it than, get your education. But also, back to kind of what, Shamika was saying about the humanistic, bring it back to that human perspective and understanding that, this is our first time all doing this. Like, we are all, even if moms have been moms before, or, they've done this before, every experience is different. Everyone's journey will look different. So showing up in that moment, not what you've known, what you've heard in the past, but in this moment, and being able to recognize that. I think when you're in the moment, that allows you to be able to show up and fully support someone in their postpartum journey, rather than what you heard your aunt go through or your grandma go through or what you went through. It's showing up and being mindful in that moment. I think that's really, so education and being mindful and showing up. Those are the two things I would say for that.
I feel like I'm just giving it all. Lay it on the floor. How I feel families, friends, etc. can show up. Of course, acknowledging that human experience first. I would say kind of low-key leave some of them judgments at the door and be open to being able to be in the moment, as Brittany said, and be present at that time, instead of being like, girl, you did this with your last baby. No, let's start with, okay, what's happening now? What's going on? Maybe circumstances change, maybe different partners, different family, different whatsoever. So being able to just, again, sit back, assess the situation, let that person naturally unfold, start from there, and also be willing to go into spaces with them, come to seminars with them, come to community events that are talking about maternal health or reproductive health or whatever. Sharpen your skills, educate yourself, go to a doctor appointment with them to see if they're telling you, listen, I don't have the money to afford a doula right now, but I also don't feel safe seeing this doctor or whatever. They always, say what they say and they don't listen to me. Maybe you gotta be like, girl, let's back it up, let's go. I don't know all the questions, but let's see what Dr. So-and-so talking about when he in front of both of us. Especially and I love to encourage our Black men to go. Go. You have, it's almost required and mandatory, because how much our Black women are dying. Go. Even if it's just a pap smear. Go. Because of the simple fact that sometimes having that other masculine presence in the room, it can shift a lot, even with him not saying nothing. And sometimes it's an educational piece for him too, because you didn't know. I took my boys with me and the dad to a pap smear before, and it was just because we happened to all be in the car. We was rushing, and then I looked at them. I said, and the doctor was like, "You want all of them in a row?" I said, "Bring all of them in a row." And then when it happened, after it was done, my kid's father was like, I don't even know y'all go through all that. I told my situation when they checked me is different. Like, oh God, he just was up there. Like, I was like, you don't know until you know, but it provided an educational moment where I was just like, this is this and this is that, where sometimes you do develop a little bit more empathy from guy to woman, or sometimes you do get to be like, oh, it's like I never knew, and you learn a little bit more. One of the things I tell my friends or others, even like on a dating level, is talk about your different changes in your cycle. Understand your luteal phase and your menstruation phase and your ovulation, because it's a mental health factor that comes in between, where if you become real good at it and you are interacting with your opposite, you could be like, hey babe, like if I'm acting a little crazy, I might be in this week. So he could be like, all right, and not necessarily take everything so personal. Whereas, so that education piece, that being self-aware, one, for yourself, but then sharing space too, where it's not just only secluded to just this or that, but being more inclusive to, this is a learning experience for all of us, even for the elders, the grandmothers, the great-grandmothers, if a grandfather's open to it, the grandfathers and etc., because some of what they learned historically then is different now, and some of what they, girl, we used to put this and this in the bottle for this, it may not work now. It may actually be more of a scarier practice to do now. So here's why. Or even when they go through stuff, because we are talking about hormones and stuff like that. I did a research a couple of days ago. I was looking into Black women actually have more estrogen than other races. We produce more. But also we are leading in fibroids and things of that nature, etc. Right? So a lot of things started coming to my mind, like what's going on. One of the things, when a woman is born, she carries the next line, and she carries the past line. So your grandmother had your mother has you, and y'all all carrying that same lineage. So within that, I'm just like, well, shoot, if my grandmother had high estrogen and she didn't know what was going on with her body, she kept saying her hips and this and this and that and the third. So my mom was miseducated and she carrying stuff, and then she has me. Now I might be miseducated until I start opening that door to learn whatsoever, especially on a cultural level, being a Black woman, and then further than that, and just being a woman, period, of the things that, and now I have a daughter, I have a baby girl. So we talk about periods, we talk about stuff like that. She's 8 years old, and my daughter knows what her body parts are, pads are, she knows, like, I'm looking at her little changes as she's developing, and I'm like, okay, you built like me, right? Let me see what made my body feel good, how I fed my body. So I'm blessed to be in this lane, so I can educate forward and then educate other women, and then support other women. And then also I've been educating a whole lot of guys who's just like, well, I was always curious about this, but I didn't know. Even some single fathers who are raising daughters, who was just like, I don't know what to do, like what, right? And I had to go back to, again, down to even nutrition, down to certain ways you feed yourself during your certain cycles. You will see it differently in your actual body frame and your mental space. So I know when y'all get to me, I'll just be sorry.
We love hearing.
But it's so much more to it. And I like to try to take advantage of these spaces, so that way if you leave from this room, you can pass it on, because this is how we get ahead and we start being more preventative and proactive to love on ourselves and each other, no matter who we are, where we come from, is passing that info along. So sorry, I'm a bit much, but this is important, especially this piece. How could you actually help if you don't have this whole educational background? So that's it.
All right, I'm gonna piggyback, but I'm also asking, could you repeat the question?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Sorry.
You just put it away. It shouldn't have done that, obviously.
It's okay.
In what ways can partners, families, and communities be better educated and equipped to recognize and respond to postpartum mental health needs?
Okay, yep. So I think they basically hit it on the head. Educating yourself, because I'll just talk about my preeclampsia experience. That's my sister, by the way, in the back room with my son. We didn't know nothing about preeclampsia, right? We didn't know about preeclampsia until I had it. So I think just having your family, and it was her and my mom that was in the hospital with me, that was supporting me and just kind of like helping me out throughout this entire journey, and just making sure that I was eating, making sure that my son was taken care of so that I can get sleep, because if I didn't get sleep, then my blood pressure would go up. If my blood pressure went up too high, then I'm back in the hospital. So there was a lot of educating pieces that they had to learn. My mom didn't really have CPR experience before we had my son, and so I'm like, Mom, go get it, and then she went and got it, and she knows these things. This is her first like blood grandson, so like this is also an experience for her as well. So just like, I think the educating piece is going to be so important, because there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot that we just didn't have access to. Like you said, just coming from a traditional standpoint, we just did what we had to do to survive. So there's a lot of things that I feel like if you really want to be supportive to like someone that is having a child, that definitely the education piece is very important. And I think that everything else will kind of come and unravel from that, because every person's needs is going to be different. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I'm gonna be cliche and quote a statistic, like Shamika said, doctors aren't quoting statistics, but postpartum depression and anxiety is super common. It affects up to 20% of moms, so it's like 1 in 5 women. That could be people in this room, that could be, 1 in 5 people that you meet. And for me as a pediatrician, I really love, and Shamika had made this point earlier too, about having someone with you at the appointment. I think for me, I love when I see a new dad in the appointment, a grandma, an aunt, because also just practically as a doctor, that's somebody else to get a history from. Because again, I think I made this point earlier, as women, we're socialized, I think especially now in the phase of motherhood, to be like the priority is the baby, like I'm not gonna prioritize my needs. We ask these questions and these screeners, but I think it's probably pretty common that moms will minimize their symptoms, or sort of say like, well, I'm supposed to feel this way, and it's supposed to be hard, and it's supposed to be hard, but it's not supposed to be that hard. And I think when I've had a best friend, a partner, a family member at that appointment, that's either somebody that I can ask, or that's someone who will stop me in the hallway to say, hey doc, I'm really worried about her, like she's not saying this. So I think that, even my own experience now, like prenatally, I think having, when my husband is at an appointment, because like you're so stressed, like I miss like 50% of what they say, and I'm even a doctor, but he's there, he's taking notes, and he'll remind me of things afterwards. So that again, I feel like I keep talking about a support person. It doesn't have to be a partner, but again, your best friend, your aunt, you're allowed to, as a patient, have whoever you want in the room, and all we would just ask you is like, is it okay to, talk about things or share, and then you say yes or no. So I think that's really important. The other piece, I noticed like throughout my career, like fathers are usually present at those early like newborn appointments, but then, as you're approaching like 1 month, 2 months, then usually we're just seeing the mom. And that's not often, it's not necessarily because they don't want to be there, but I think we still have a lot of ways to go with like leave policies, maternity leave versus paternity leave. But it's also, I think, really important to disseminate the knowledge that Connecticut paid family leave is for men and women. That's 12 weeks, that's your legal right. And and I know across all careers, it's still like a societal misconception that like, people make fun of men, but like that's your legal right. And again, having that person home with you, or even to go to the appointments, I think that's also important, education to pass on to patients and families.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, or want anybody on the panel to elaborate on anything? All right. So my next question is, based on the work that you do in your role, why would you say that timely and adequate detection and management of postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression is important for moms, for babies, and for their families?
Just a early detection?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just want to get
I could start with this one to give Brittany a break.
Yeah, sure. That's right.
So again, I think for those who may be came in later, so I'm a pediatrician, I'm also a child abuse pediatrician, and a case that was very early in my career that really has stayed with me forever is a local pediatrician called me and said, I have this baby who at the time was 6 weeks old, and they keep showing up with bruises. Like there's marks like kind of around the neck, around the chest, on the, some of them, one of them looked like almost like a handprint, like somebody had grabbed the baby too hard. And, you know, our knowledge is that a bruise in a baby that's very young, like 4 months and younger, is extremely uncommon. And it could be something accidental happened, or is somebody being rough with the baby, or there's like a serious medical condition, like a bleeding issue. So when she called me, I was like, this is an emergency, this baby needs to come to the hospital right away. We need to check, like, you know, is this infantile cancer? We also check the body for, are there other signs of injuries? Because sometimes I've had those cases and the baby then has head trauma or they have fractures. And I went to see this mom with the social worker. She had just moved from Texas when the baby was like 2 weeks old. Her mom had been helping her there. Her husband's in the military here, so she's alone with this baby. And thank God this baby didn't have any other injuries. It was, you know, it was just the bruising, which was serious. It pointed, but that was kind of the sign that there was more going on. And I remember talking to her, and she said, you know, I think I've been in denial about how stressed I am. I'm probably grabbing him too hard. Like I'm getting frustrated, and I need help. And so I just think like if, you know, there was that transition, she'd only seen the pediatrician once, like could that have been picked up? I think we still picked it up before any serious harm came to the baby. We set up a home visitor program for her, so somebody would come and just get to know people in the community, because she didn't know anybody. But that's a case that I think really stuck with me, as we were able to prevent a bad outcome, but there was still that kind of sentinel sign that, you know, something's not right, like she's just getting really overwhelmed and frustrated with this baby. So that's just one that it was very early in my career and has always stayed with me, because I just remember her face when she had that realization. And I know she loved her baby, she wasn't trying to hurt him, but those bruises were the sign that she was struggling.
So I mean, in the area that I typically help single moms, and that I help moms in general, and women in general too, is just with nutrition and fitness for those that came in a little later. I think early detection, and I kind of want to integrate and weave in my own experience as well. I shared early on that had I not went to the hospital when I went, we don't know what would have happened, because when I got there, like I'll repeat it, it was 200 over 160 my blood pressure. And for anybody that doesn't know, that's extremely high in your stroke level. And I'm walking around driving a car, doing all the things, going to fitness classes, had no idea. Carrying a beautiful baby and just had no idea. So I think I had, and again, like the education piece, I just wasn't aware. There was a lot of things that I just also wasn't aware of, that I think that had I known, had I even learned about, or had I been aware of, I definitely would have probably seen signs a little bit earlier. But definitely knowing those things can prevent being unalived, can prevent someone from saying, okay, well, I'm feeling very tired, and it's an unusual tired. It's like, okay, well, you ask more questions, you did get to the bottom of it, so that it's like, okay, well, it's been a year. When was the last time you had your blood work done? You know, maybe these levels are not leveling out the way they need to. And then also it's like, okay, well, are you getting outside, you know, and like paying attention to the person in general. I think that's why, I know we've heard it a lot today, but the support system is so important, because they're going to detect things that you try to cover up, or that you try to shovel up under a rug, because like as a mom, you just don't put yourself first. good moms. Good moms don't put themselves first. It's always me last, and what can I do for my kid? What can I do for my family? And as long as they're good, I'm good. But if you're no good to yourself, you're not good for them. So I think definitely the support system, and definitely making sure that you're aware of those things that could happen, because it could prevent all the other stuff. And if you work from a preventative state, it's a lot easier than trying to find a cure to something. And so I'm really a big advocate of just trying to make sure that you have that support system, and that you know the things that you need to know. And then even if you pay attention to how you're feeling. A lot of times when I talk to clients, food can be tricky because I want to say, like, I come from a very huge family. My grandmother had 13 kids. Her sister had 22. They were raised in the South. They were very geeky. So I grew up on fried everything, baked everything, smothered everything. So for me to kind of be in this field is a little different from my family.
Going against the grain.
It goes against the grain a little bit. And so my family kind of look at me and they were like, "What you had for lunch? Ice?" No. No, I'm not. But I kind of got into this field because I just wasn't feeling myself one day, and I was like, I think I can do something about this if I change how I'm eating. And I started to like how I felt. And people noticed, and it became a passion. And then, like I said, I got into the fitness and nutrition in 2013, and it just kind of stuck. So again, early detection saves a lot of future issues, for sure.
Trying to be preventative is crucial. And being able to sit back and be aware and kind of, again, pulling yourself back and just assessing from afar. Sometimes it's best because, again, you can pick up a lot more things, but being preventative is just super crucial, especially when it comes to a mental health capacity, a nutrition capacity, and it goes hand in hand with how self-aware are you, just period, whether if you were birthing or not or whatever. Like, what is your typical Tuesday diet? Like, is it always Taco Tuesdays and tequila? Like, what are you doing? Because it's a lot integrated into it. One of the things that I have a low-key deep relationship with endocrinology. It always beats my tongue, so mind me. And I've been debating for these past couple months of becoming an endocrinologist, which deals with hormones. And Connecticut is a tight little state. So on the BIPOC level, and specifically for Black people, we don't have a lot of variety of doctors in a lot of spaces and places. We don't have a lot of pediatric Black doctors. We don't have a lot of, we are actually getting more Black midwives, but we don't have a lot of Black OBs. And the difference between a midwife and an OB is that an OB can do a C-section, a midwife cannot. So that means they don't have that surgery, a midwife doesn't have that surgery background, which means we don't have a lot of Black OBs specifically. We don't have a lot of Black urologists. Honestly, I found 2 Black and then female urologists in the state of Connecticut, just 2. And urology is for the urinary and men. And I mention that on purpose because when you think of endocrinology, help me out, right? I'm gonna just call it endo. When you're dealing with endo, it branches over that urology piece and that midwife, gyno piece, and also somewhat a little bit pediatric as well, because it is going over that hormonal function, which even when you're learning about it, so I have a little bit of medical education from going to school to be a medical coder as well. So even learning about it, that sector in the book be like this big, because it's one of those things that should actually be talked about more, that isn't. with that being said, and why it intrigues me so much, because it plays the hugest part between your mental and your physical. And literally, because we underestimate the power of our hormones. No matter what gender you are, you underestimate it to a point. It's the last thing, even when they're testing for things. They'll test everything under the sun and won't test your hormones for nothing. Even when it comes to diabetes. If you're estrogen high, you have a higher chance of having diabetes because it's sugar. If you obtain a lot of sugar in your body, you build up a lot of estrogen, and that can go for anybody. So with that being said, is we don't even think about that factor. So then when you go back to what is estrogen, you also want to think of like, what are you again eating? And then if you could get ahead of what you're eating, you could get ahead of how much your body is producing what. Also, it's not usually commonly asked that we're doing generalized full panels, looking at your iron, looking at your calcium levels, looking at your B12, your B6, where your energy is coming from, or whatsoever. So then you're gonna get the postpartum mom who might be losing her hair, or the birthing mom who's wondering why all of a sudden she got a bunch of cavities and her teeth is sensitive. So when I get to speak with some of these clients, I go, when the last time you got your eyes checked? When the last time you got your teeth checked? And they're like, I got worried about all this. Yes, you do. If you start seeing that you're shedding a lot of hair in that brush, you might want to check into where is your levels at. When the last time you did blood work? Oh no, my OB did it. No. They're looking for something different. What do you have a general practitioner who can actually submit so you can get a full panel of what's going on? Because knowing about your body ahead of time, before your pregnancy or whatever, you also need to monitor it during and after. One of the things I try to recommend, one of my preventative tips in postpartum is telling a mom, don't just trust that 6-week checkup. They're gonna tell you this is what's going on with your body, yada yada yada. Here go this paper. Call me if you need me. Have a nice life. Great, you're a parent, and ship you along your way. I always say, wait till your baby is 6 months, because that is a full 6 months from birth. If the baby is born and then 6 months later, that's a full 6 months from birth. I say, why 6 months is because now you have half a year already that has passed into parenthood. Where are your hormone levels? Update your charts. It's time. It's time, because before you get to that other half of the year, now you have something to start with and compare it to. If you had the baby December, you get to like June and you can take that test. Now you have from June to almost next December to compare that. Where was your levels from after 6 months having that baby? Because 6 weeks is only like a month and 2 weeks. It's 4 weeks and 1 month. So you're literally a month and 2 weeks. I would expect your normal, your levels to be kind of funky, even if it's presenting as normal. Sometimes what is statistically normal is actually funky. Like, and they make it a statistic because they keep commonly seeing it. But it doesn't mean that is your normal either. Because how were you before you had this baby? Now, you may not exactly snap all the way back and your levels completely go to a drop, but your body will adjust to its new normal at a certain point. So if you could give yourself a 6 month stretch, you could consider that, like, okay, like I said, if you had your baby kind of late December-ish and you go around June, you could sit there and be like, all right, well, if I go get tested now and I figure out it may not be great, I may not want to see these numbers. But then when you get to the end of that year, during that process, you're giving yourself time to work with a nutritionist, sign up for the gym, try some yoga, try changing little things in your diet. Before, you could have all the candy in the world and you became a mommy, your body couldn't take it no more. 6 months later, it still was, maybe you are presenting with that nice round belly still. Some of that is high estrogen, that round belly. So 6 weeks is different from 6 months with that round belly. And then it make you go, well, shoot, I may not want necessarily a flat stomach, but why am I still rounding as if I'm still carrying? So when's the last time have you checked those levels, right? And so bringing those levels down, when I'll use guys because they're the easiest visual I could think of. When a guy drinks a lot of beer is yeast. Beer turns into estrogen, right? So they get that nice little round teddy bear belly, right? But then when that guy puts that beer down, starts hitting the gym, he increases his testosterone level. Women have testosterone too. Ours is just not that high. So what happens is when we're rounding like that, our progesterone and testosterone is off. Our estrogen is just eating it alive, right? So when we sit there, we may have to I have worked with naturopathic doctors on top of regular doctors. So I've had one doctor checking my general information, and I had a naturopathic doctor because I like more natural things, checking into my herbs, and this is what you add to your diet, this is what you pull away, this is how this breaks down in your system. And listen, them appointments hit different because you don't get 20 minutes. They give you like 5 hours because, girl, we're gonna assess this from head to toe of what's wrong with you. Because again, some of their normal is funky because it's based off of how many people in the room got the same thing going on to clarify that now it's normal. So, but with the expansion of naturopathic doctors, I was able to explore, well, dang, a statistical normal ain't necessarily my normal.
Right.
So I share that info with moms like, listen, check 6 months later and see what's going on. Even for the guy that's involved too, check too, because I've seen dads pack on weight. Mom eating, he eat. Like, mom doing this, he doing this. He right behind her. Because a lot of things usually happen in pairs, subconsciously. Even if it's your favorite homegirl, every Tuesday that's your favorite homegirl to do tacos and tequila. Guess who's going with you next time? And she like, girl, my hips spread. I don't know why. It's just like, sis, we've been here every Tuesday faithfully. So, and you're not assessing that stuff. And she like, oh, when I get my period, it's hard. These cramps is horrible. And you're not thinking about them Taco Tuesdays y'all done went to and how that alcohol is affecting your body. Until you start being like, oh, wait a minute, girl, I did some labs. We may have to stop Taco Tuesday and go to Lettuce Wednesdays or something, I don't know. But even again, with the guys too, honey, we may have to change the way that we cook it. Because during this time, we've been eating cheeseburgers and stuff. We're eating quick, because the baby has been born. We haven't having time to get in the kitchen. You working and you not taking care of you either, but you trying to take care of us because you're working. And like you said, that maternal health leave is for both. But what happens is a lot of guys go back into work. So then they're not home. So they trying to make sure, how do I make sure, my wife, my whatever is straight? Okay, well, I gotta work. And then he's some kind of neglecting himself to a degree. So then when he is home after doing 8 hours and baby is up, and it's just like, wow, you not sleeping either. You have disproportion also possibly being created in the home as well. Because now mom like, I was home with baby J all day. I know you was working, but I was home. I was breastfeeding. I had a C-section, had to wrap my belly. I had to do all these things to support him while you was at work. I'm not necessarily upset that you were working. I'm tired. And he like, well, I came from work. I'm tired. And it's just like, what we gonna do? We're gonna order out. We're gonna do all these other things to try to make it convenient for us. And what happens? Our health is on the table. It's the sacrifice, right? So being able to be like, baby, I went to this 6-month appointment. I found out we're going to have to go fried chicken free for a few days. So like, we're going to have to start changing some things. And this is why, and hey, I got checked. Maybe you should go too. Again, bringing in that educational piece for the family as well. Maybe you should go too. Hey, not saying, I like your bare belly, but last time I see you try to swing out the bed, maybe you couldn't get out of there. I'm focused on me, but I'm concerned about you. You was wheezing, patting the baby to sleep. I don't know. We gotta check that. but it's a family affair. It really truly is, even down to the baby. Because then that's where you get some parents going from breastfeeding to, let me hurry up and make this formula bottle, cause Lord. And then a lot of formulas have a lot of sugar and a lot of stuff in it. So now babies getting the formula bottle. Not saying it's the worst or the best or anything, but just saying this is something to think about. But they're getting that piece. Dad is ordering everything for the food. He packing on his pounds. You packing on your pound. Like it's a lot happening that no one's really necessarily taking the time to pay attention to, because the educational piece is not there, the self-awareness is not there. So how do we become preventative? We share this information, we come to things like this, we do these things, we go, hey sis, hey, you just had that baby, could I make you a soup? Can I make you a stew? You like some bone broth? Oh, you vegetarian? Hey, let's go to a vegetarian fest. Like, how can I meet you? How can I meet you? Because part of you taking care of yourself, or a part of me being in your life and helping you taking care of yourself is pulls in those things and go, something may not be right, and let's make this a team effort so you don't feel like you gotta do it alone. Even within the house between partners too. You don't gotta do it alone. Or like I said, honey, I seen you was up, baby couldn't breathe, you swung your feet over the bed, you was, so, maybe let's go take the baby for a stroll. Let's get our cardio together. Let's get our heart rates right. Because it becomes a family affair after a certain while, and that's how we become more preventative together. And sometimes, like I said, the doctors may not just come out or have the time frame to say all these things, but the more you know, the more you can share, and it's easier to pinpoint when something may not be right. And you may not be a health nut and you bench pressing from Sunday to Saturday and doing it 2 hours a week. You may not, and even them, sometimes they gotta lighten up because they'll strain their heart. So it's about having balance and being aware of yourself and being realistic, because we be trying to get on them scales and be lying. I didn't gain 5 pounds. I didn't do that. Yes, you did. You did it. It's okay. What are you gonna do about it? So just being realistic with yourself and making space for that on all ends.
Yes. I'm so glad you guys, that question came up, because, my middle child ended up having to go see an endocrinologist. And it wasn't because of me, I thought it was because of me, so I went and kept going, and I'm still going, making sure that I'm okay. But his dad don't believe it's him, he's in denial, so I'm like, okay, but my son ended up having full breast, and he had to have the surgery to get his and it messed him all the way up, because he was bullied in school, he was called faggot word forever, and to me, when somebody produce that in you and plant that seed and keep saying it, after a while you think it. And now he's having problems with identity of who he is. And I keep telling him, you are man of God. You are man of God. You are not. And he keeps saying, Ma, you don't know what you're talking about. This is who I am. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. God has the last laugh in my life. That's who I am. But it was really, really bad. And now he has lost a tremendous amount of weight. And I see the left side poking out again, and I said, I think it's time for you to take your appointment. You can't do it? Absolutely not. This was just yesterday we was talking about this. That's why I'm in shock this came up. I said, absolutely not. Mom, you can't do it? No. Oh, we want to just be disrespectful to him. I said, say all you want. You're the one who be laid up in the hospital bed. Guess what? I'll be right there beside you, but I'm not doing it. And he was like, I can't believe you just listening to Pop. Call him Pop. My mom, Pop. I said, okay, you think I'm listening to Pop? I'm listening to what the doctor said. It's a surgery you went to. Have you forgotten? I still got pictures and everything. I still got your medical record. I just thank God y'all brought that up, because I wish he was here. My other son split. He ain't here. And I said, he was like, wait, why do you think he left? But I thank God that somebody is taking control and people, and we strive for everything we do, but we don't pay attention to that we strive for. But, we gotta do better.
Yeah.
Thank y'all
You're welcome.
for doing better.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, but that just validates how really real this really is, just across the board. And like I said, I like to say when I present myself that I work in reproductive health. And I always be like, no, there's not ABCs and degrees behind my name, but it's real stories, real experiences, even my own personal experience that outweigh those degrees and ABCs. And not saying don't get them, not saying X, Y, Z, but if you allow me to speak, you'll hear it. But it's really real. It really is, and it's really real for, again, all genders. It doesn't necessarily matter, male, woman, whatever, child, it doesn't matter. Even animals are affected when their hormones are off. So it's like, what makes you think that you are bigger than the program? Assess yourself, and I know